Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you for everyone tuning in to the VAFF Series Development Program 2022 Mentorship Session with 𝗂𝗏. I'm Regina Leung, Director of the VAFF Industry Programs. So we began by acknowledging the land that we are broadcasting from is the unceded territory of 𝗔𝘀𝗸 𝗠𝗲 and First Nations. As well as the Mississauga of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the 𝗔𝘀𝗸𝗁, the 𝗁𝗲 and the Wingdam people. So before we kick off our VAFF 26 of the Vancouver Asian Film Festival, so we launched this project in last December. And so this project is sponsored by Bell Media and is a series development funding to assist Asian Canadian filmmakers and TV producers to create projects, to create stories. And so with this opportunity here, and we invite different industrial professionals to give us some tips and tricks to how to pitch to a different TV series production. And today we are fortunate to have one of the industry professionals here to share these tips and tricks with us. And you can ask him anything. So put in all your questions in the comment box, and then we can just dive in and ask him any question that he wants. So who is our guest of honor today? We have 𝗂𝗏, and he is the Director of Production and Development at Brightlight Pictures. And Aaron is Chinese-born Canadian who started his film career in 1998. After finding success as an actor and a stuntman, he moved into production in 2008. Since then, he's been producing everything from indie features to network series, with his most recent credit being Firefly Lane for Netflix. And we also have Joshua Lam. He is emerging filmmaker with focus on creative producing, directing, and writing, and the side crafting diverse narrative through graphic and animated media. And he is our creative producer. So now I'll invite both of them here with us to start this conversation. Hi, Aaron.
Hi.
Hi, Josh. All right. So before we start, so Aaron can talk about his experience and what is this about for this TV series productions, and then we can just coming through a few questions, and then audience, please put your questions in the comment box. Ask him anything. This is your opportunity. You got 45 minutes to do so. Okay, Aaron.
Thank you, and thank you for having me, and thank you everyone for spending your Saturday afternoon, early afternoon. I'm sure there's possibly better places that we want to be, but of course we can't because of COVID. So you're here with me. TV development. I just wanted to touch some broad strokes, and then I'd love to give you guys some time to get questions in, because I think one of the biggest things for young emerging and even some experienced filmmakers is the ability to ask questions, because sometimes you don't have a mentor or someone who's been through the process and all that kind of stuff. And this is a great platform, obviously, for that. And like I say in all of my talks and everything that I've done with VAFF, please reach out to me if I haven't met you. I'd love to have a virtual coffee and hear about who you are and what you do and what your aspirations are, and if there's any way I can help. So TV development in the world of movie making, I would probably put TV creation as the most difficult. Getting a series on TV is, for many reasons, it's the hardest thing to do for a creative. A feature film, you can write, you can go out and raise private equity, you can get your tax credits and all that kind of stuff, and you can go make your movie. There's nobody stopping you from making your movie, and then trying to sell it later, or you can sell it ahead of time and raise your financing that way. TV, on the other hand, you don't just go out, raise money and make a TV series and hope the CBC will air it and hope Netflix picks it up, because it's usually such a large amount of money. So that's where, this development process that's very different from feature film comes in. And, companies like Bell have these development programs where, well, it's not necessarily a program, but I mean development structures where they find material, they will put, financing and experience, executives, all this kind of stuff on a project to help develop it to be something that they can pitch within their own company to go on one of their platforms or channels. And that's kind of the bigger, broader process of the business side of it. You really can't, get a show made unless you've got a Bell or a CBC or a Netflix or somebody like that kind of on board early. So that brings us to, what do you need to do as a creative to be able to get there? And, use forums like this, program right now that's going to give access to Bell to be able to pitch. And it comes down to, developing a story that is unique to you, possibly, or if it's not unique to you, something that you, maybe you're a professional in, or feel strong about. It's really kind of up to you, again, what kind of story you tell. But there's a lot of things that you're going to need to be able to get to the end pitch level, which I'll get into. I'm sure we'll get into once we get into some questions.
Yeah. So if I could quickly, I got one quick question for you, Aaron. It's what's your 3 do's and don'ts during your preparation of the TV series development phase?
I don't know about don'ts. I might be able to get to them. Definitely do's. First thing is, if you want to create a TV series, one of the things I recommend is finding out what kind of TV series you want to make. Are you going to make comedy? Are you going to make a horror? All these kind of things. So once you kind of pick what you want to make, then it's about doing some research and seeing what else is out there. In the Canadian landscape, there's not a lot of horror, for example. So the question is like, if you're going to develop a horror TV series, where is it going to go? And this is where, before you put your creative hat on, it takes some business mindset. And, creating a TV series or creating any project, you are doing business, even though there's a lot of creativity and art involved. So it comes down to saying, okay, I want to make a show like ABC, XYZ, whatever. And so you do your research on what other companies have made projects like that. And is there a project that's similar to yours? Is yours something like this, but very different? Or, those are kind of the step one. Step two, again, it's finding something that is authentic to you. And I think that's the most important thing, especially for new filmmakers. Like you could try to go out there and get rights to a book or get rights to something and, adapt something. But it's hard to do when you're, you don't have the credits and you don't have a large company and you don't have financing behind you and all this kind of stuff. So then it comes down to like, why am I going to believe in the story you're telling? Well, usually if it's something that's personal to you or something that you've been through or something that you are close to or something that you've researched for years and stories that that nobody else knows, that's going to be your first key advantage, is a story that's unique, specialized and stuff like that. So I guess those are kind of 2, and I don't know about 3. Don'ts. I say this a lot of like, try not to let finance and stuff get in the way of your creativity. That being said, one of my don'ts for, up and comers, maybe don't write the next Game of Thrones. Maybe don't write, a comedy in space. Although who knows, it could be very contained and easy to do. I'm thinking about like actually going to space like they are right now. So again, just, it comes down to breaking down where you think you could take your show. Again, like, so you look at Bell, which is awesome because they have so many different platforms, channels, and, whether it's Crave or one of their other channels, and they have also, reality-based stuff and things like that. Like, you can look and you can pinpoint, you can go, this is who I'm targeting. Then at least you have an idea of a direction of where to go. So, yeah, and then you can look at, again, like the scope and size of the shows that they do, and kind of hone your project into that.
Awesome. Thank you for the do's of TV development. We do have one question actually from the audience. This is from 𝗔𝘀𝗸𝗠𝗲. If we could pull that one up, the question is, would something pitched as a limited series be better received than something that might be longer running?
That's probably, that's a good question for a broadcaster, because, they're going to have more of an idea. Now, limited series 5-6 years ago, I would definitely say don't bother. Obviously, with, the True Detectives and all these, great shows, and streaming has opened the door for this. There is an appetite for limited series. I don't know specifically about the Canadian broadcasters and who would be interested, and if they are even looking at them. And that's really a question for them. I think if you have a great idea and a great, package that you can put together, then and the story makes sense as a limited series, I would say go for it as a limited series. This day and age, good content is good content, and authentic content is authentic content. And that's what everyone is looking for. So, the old adage of wanting a series that will run forever is still part of what they're looking for. It's important to them, because once you get that following and once you get a successful show, you want to keep going. So, a limited series may not be able to bring that, but, on a streaming site, a limited series could draw in a handful of viewers. And that's really what it is about for streamers too. So, yeah, I wouldn't limit myself. And, if it's right for your project and it makes sense, then sure.
Awesome. Hope that answers everything for you, Vinu. Can't wait to hear about that limited series. Next up, we have Alex Ho with a question. How would animation fit into the do-don't space when considering financing scope and size?
Well, for one, animation is not my wheelhouse. I've never done any, although I love it. I watch it. I grew up on it, obviously. It's different, but it's the same. Again, like, you're gonna have, for animation, you're gonna want to find, probably a production house that does animation as your first step, rather than trying to pitch to, a broadcaster that has an animation arm, because you're gonna have to have someone that knows how to make it, and that's, the big key. Obviously, when it comes to scope of an animation, like, unless it's like super stylized, high-end 3D animation, which I guess these days may not be as expensive as it used to be. You may not have as much of a creative handcuff as, drama, or, like trying to do an action show. Like, you don't want to go crazy, but if it's an action animation, sure, have people blowing up buildings and worlds and whatever, So it is a very different world than live action.
Copy that. I hope that answers your question, Alex. We do have another question in the chats. It's from Carl. Should you write every episode of the series, or just the pilot if you're looking at pitching your show, or not write it at all and just focus on the pitch?
That's a great question. You'd want to focus on your pitch first. Pitch is 100%. A lot of times you can get, a great pitch will get you in the door, get you possibly development. And part of the development process they like to be involved with is developing the pilot. So it could be something where if you come with your version of the pilot, they may say this is the direction that they see, or it might not be. And it could be something where they say, look, we're going to redevelop the pilot, which is it's not a horrible thing. If you're developing with a broadcaster, you say, okay, I'll throw my pilot out and we'll go the direction you want to go. So I don't think it hurts you. Now, if you don't have maybe the experience to write a pilot, and you don't have, the confidence, or who knows, it might be better to wait, because it might be better to say, hey, look, you've got a great concept, you've got a great idea, a great everything, the structure and everything, but we'd love to partner you with, or even bring in, an experienced writer to help get it to the next level. And, as a creative, a lot of times we don't want to let go of the creative, but in the TV world, you got to remember that the development executives that you're working with, they also have the task of taking your project, pitching it to the finance people. And, they have to stack the deck, and they have to make it as great as possible to help you get a green light. So, it comes down to like, my mentality is you do what you got to do to get your project made, and working with them, and working with, and that's the other thing, compared to features, television is a big collaborative process. You're going to be working with development executives. You're going to be working with, production houses. Later down the road, who knows if another studio comes in to help finance, and they're going to have notes and all that kind of stuff. So it's good to just be aware that it's not, you're not going to be, how we see J.J. Abrams, 100% running the show, doing everything. You got to have your start somewhere, and you got to get your experience somewhere. So, yeah, I kind of loosely answer the question. It's kind of a yes and no, and it doesn't hurt to write your pilot, because then that helps, even if you're pitching, say, to a production company and an executive like myself, at least I can see where you want to go with the show and what the show looks like and stuff like that.
Awesome. Thank you, Aaron, for answering that question from Carl. I hope that helped you a lot. Moving down the list, we got, a lot more questions. We have one from Praneet Akila. Can you explain a production company's role in development? How would a typical development deal be structured, and how does Brightlight Pictures, for example, work with a broadcaster?
Okay, cool. So you don't necessarily need a production company to pitch your show, and hopefully get it greenlit and all that kind of stuff. Where it helps is obviously the experience of putting together pitches, because it's kind of like, it's like the first step into getting your project going. And we would make sure that, you're coming in with a professional pitch. It could be even something where, as an example, if we love your pitch and it's not gone to the broadcaster yet, and we say, look, your writing is good, but it's not what we think the broadcasters are gonna, go for, then at the production company level, it may be, let's bring in a writer to help, so that's kind of one of the ways it can go. And again, like sometimes, writers don't have the ability to pitch, don't have the access to the broadcasters and stuff like that. So that's where a production company can help as well. And then the other big one is funding. There is development funding out there, but it's usually not accessible by individuals. It has to be by a production company. So production companies will have these, funds that they can access, but they need a project to be able to do it. So then we're out there looking for what kind of project we want to dedicate those development funds towards.
Awesome. Thank you, Aaron, for answering Praneet's question. Let's go down to, it's so many more. We have another one from Vinu. Hi, Vinu. How important do you think the aesthetic of your pitch needs to be? Obviously, I would include genre-related images, etc., but does stressing over the font used, colors, etc., really make a difference if the content itself is solid? I ask because if I have a limited budget and can only look to stock imagery to include, sometimes control over that part of the presentation is a little out of my wheelhouse. Though I can always learn, it would just take longer.
Yeah. So having a visual deck can help. If you're doing a visual show, I would say, and this is where the good old internet is going to be helpful. So much like how I said, go online, look at these broadcasters, see what kind of shows they're making, see who's making a show that you would like, all that kind of stuff. Then go out and you're going to say, okay, I want to make a comedy about 5 people in a coffee shop. Then you go, okay, who else made these kind of shows? And whose script can I read? And whose pitch deck can I read? You can go online now and find the pitch. I don't think there's a pitch deck or Bible for Friends, but you can find the pitch deck and Bible for Scrubs. You can find it for New Girl. You can find it for, but like you name it, you can probably find it. And, you know, we're talking about established Hollywood writers, creators that are doing these pitches. And a lot of them, you know, kind of follow what you're supposed to do, but a lot of them don't. And that's the great thing about a pitch is it's all about creativity. You're selling your world, you're telling your story. So if you're doing a sci-fi, yeah, you want your deck to be visual. You want to have cool elements and, you know, all that kind of stuff. If you're doing a comedy, yeah, maybe add some things that help, you know, with the visual. But, you know, for comedy, it's really about, you know, the words and what's funny and the world and stuff like that. You can add a few images, but in that sense, I don't know if it's that important. You know, drama is about, again, story, character. That's really what matters. Having a little bit of key art is nice. But again, like if you are someone who doesn't have, you know, Photoshop ability and, you know, all this kind of stuff, then don't worry about it. Because, you know, hearing a pitch that you're passionate about and that you know and, you know, feel is way better than any imagery that you can pull off the internet and put on a page kind of thing.
Awesome. Cool. Thank you, Aaron, for answering that. Hope that answers your question, Vinu. We're back to Praneet again. We have also, I know people can pitch directly to a broadcaster like CBC, for example. Is this advisable, or is it smarter to approach a production company first? If so, how do emerging artists without any pre-existing relationships with prod companies approach execs like yourself?
Again, like I give out my email address on these pitches or these panels. We're very open to looking at stuff. I can't speak for many other companies, but specifically for me at my company, obviously I'm looking for diverse voices, diverse stories. When it comes to pitching directly to broadcasters, you know, again, like working with a production company is kind of like a coach. You know, we're going to help prepare you for the pitch. We're going to help rehearse the pitch. We're going to help, you know, develop your deck. You know, we may invest some money in hiring a graphic artist to, you know, put this deck together if it's needed. It might not even be. And it could even be something where we hire, you know, a copy editor to, you know, go over the wording and make sure that everything flows and this kind of stuff, just to help polish it, just so that when you are going into the pitch, you're going in as prepared as you can go, you know. And the other thing a production company brings is obviously kind of a stamp of approval. If the broadcaster goes, oh, well, you know, that company that made that show and that show believes in this project, then, you know, it's kind of like a stamp of approval, you know. And that doesn't mean that they're going to pick up the show, but anything you can do to stack your deck is, you know, I would say do it. Now, that being said, you know, there's not a lot of large companies and there's not a lot of production companies. So it may not be that you can get your project with a company because, you know, I'd love to pick them all up, but I can't. We just don't have the bandwidth and we don't have the time and resources. So, you know, that's where I encourage you to look at, you know, all the other materials out there for all the successful shows and see what everyone else did. And then you can mirror that and say, oh, the deck for, Scrubs was 8 pages of words. There's no pictures, no nothing. But this is how they structured it. And this is where the comedy comes in. And this is the flow of the document and stuff like that. And that's something, if you're doing a comedy similar to that show, then you can follow that kind of formula.
Awesome. Thank you for that answer, Aaron. Moving down, we're back to Alex. If you were receiving, say, a 2-pager pitch document, what would you want to see from the document, and what do you think would be the best way to structure it?
Like an early pitch is usually 1 page. Yes, it can be 2 pages. Now you're kind of getting into, a smaller introductory pitch. Visuals can help a lot here. When you think about what this is, what you're trying to do with this document is you're trying to get me to the next level. And really that's what it's about, right? Like it's nobody's going to option you off of 1 pager. No one's going to put you into development. It's great. Like I want to have a meeting with you. I want to hear more. I want to hash this out. What do you have in mind? So again, it can be, yes, obviously cool visual art can help. For me personally, and Josh has heard this a million times, I believe everyone can come up with a cool world. I believe everyone can come up with something unique, whether it's fantastical or not, and cool situations and all these kind of things. For me, what I look for is, who is it about and why do I care? So whatever your world is, if it's on Mars, or if it's downtown East Vancouver, or if it's India, or whatever it is, who are we watching? Why do we care? And for that person within their world, what's going to happen to them? And that's why we watch TV. We get attached to people. We don't watch Ted Lasso because we love soccer. We watch Ted Lasso because the characters are amazingly written and they're so interesting and flawed. And, so really, if you can get that out in your 1-pager, this is a story about somebody finding redemption, or someone who did this and has to do this, so that you outline it very clearly at what it is at its core, and then paint the picture of the world around them. And for me, that's kind of the best way, so that I don't read something and go, what is this about? Like, what is this? What are they getting at? And then maybe I have to, of course, that will kind of pique my interest. But then the first question to you will be, what is this show about and who's it about? Why do I want to watch this person from one episode to another when I can go turn on reruns of Friends and just turn my brain off, So that's kind of, again, the pitch. The single page pitch document is a very different thing than your larger pitch. It's really about getting yourself in the door. And it can be something as simple as a paragraph, your synopsis. And that's another thing that's an art to do, is writing a very succinct, solid TV series synopsis. And there's guidelines online. There's examples all over the place. Same thing. Go online, read as many of these as you can. There is a little bit of a formula to them that you can figure out, and then you go, oh, well, I can plug my character in this way and make sure that I say it this way, and that kind of stuff. Because, that's asking to say, hey, your entire series that you thought of, tell me about it in 4 sentences, which is a good practice. So, yeah.
Awesome. Cool. Hopefully that helped answer your question, Alex. Going down, we have a question from Connor Wiley. Of the shows you produced at Brightlight, was there anything about their pitches that put a twinkle in your eye?
I don't know. Like there's some pitches that you just, that knock your socks off. It's not. Is there anything about the pitches that put a twinkle in your eye? Usually the pitches that we get are, again, they're early stages pitches, and they're stuff that we have to come in and help polish and put together. And that's a big thing of what we do, is working to put these pitches together so that they're broadcast ready. I can't think of anything, again, like that comes in and you're just like, wow, we have to make this movie. There have been a few, again, just the concept or just who's involved or just what it's about. We're like, wow, we got to make this movie. But even then, sometimes, depending on the subject matter, the scope and all that kind of stuff, we're like, wow, this story's amazing. We've got to make this movie, but how do you make this movie? And you can come in with the most amazing pitch, but if it's about, 1600s battleships and based off of what your great grandfather went through, and you found the memoirs and all this kind of stuff, and I get chills thinking about a story like that, but can we make that? And that's the next question that we have to ask ourselves as a production company. This is great, but can we get it made? Is there a broadcaster who is going to come on board with this? If it is something bigger than maybe any of the Canadian broadcasters will do, if it's, the next Game of Thrones, do we go knock on Amazon, Netflix's door and try to do something like this? When they have, again, J.J. Abrams pitching their big blockbuster series to them and that kind of stuff. So, it comes down to, we have to do the same thing that I'm telling you guys that you're going to have to do, is finding out who's going to be able to, pick up a show. And then if it's that amazing, is it still feasible?
Good answer, Aaron. Yes, it's all about production. Can we make it? That's and so basically I have another question here in the private chat, and it's, let's share your top 3 challenging moments when you produced a TV series, if you can share.
Well, first off, I haven't produced anything that I've developed from the ground up yet. I'm going through that process with Bell now, going through the early stages of development. I have, produced television for Netflix. I've done pilots and all that kind of stuff. And, the big difference between television and features is kind of going back to what I said about all of the different voices involved. You got a showrunner, you have other writers, you have a producing director, you have other executives from maybe the parent production company. Depending on who's, producing the show, it could be that there's a studio and a network. So you have studio notes, you have network notes, you have a studio production executive, a creative executive over there, a creative executive on the other side. So it's balancing, a lot of, different opinions and stuff like that. And that's where it becomes challenging. That's kind of like the biggest challenge, but it's also can be the funnest part, because there's so many great people that are bringing things to the table. And it's not necessarily all on one person all the time, because they bring in the experience of, really of what people are looking to see and buy and spend their time on. For example, like Netflix, obviously they have their analytics and stuff like that. And, maybe a creative is like, look, I want to tell a story about this. And they're like, well, we've had 3 people tell similar stories and they just don't really, go very far. And that's great insight for a creative and going, oh, okay, well, I always use like an example. It's, because we're in a business, it's like you're a manufacturer and you say, look, I want to make widgets. And they go, well, widgets don't really sell very well. But if you make, thingamajigs, then you'll sell lots of them. You're like, great, I have a great idea for a thingamajig. And then you go make thingamajigs, right? So, it's not really a difficulty. There's difficulty in any production, obviously. You're always trying to make something bigger than the amount of money you have. Even, when Star Wars has the hundreds of millions, they're stretching every dollar all the time. Standard kind of, production-y stuff. But again, the hardest part in television development is getting into television development.
Okay. Oh my God. That's a good note for all of us here. I do have a question from Carl again. From pitch development to production to release, roughly how long do you think the process is?
Great question. It could be a few months. It could be years. It depends. There's so many factors, you know. It could be that they love your idea and now they need to find maybe a showrunner to bring in to help foster the idea, redevelop a pilot, you know, get the pilot written, maybe do a development room with some writers to hash it out more, and then do a pilot, maybe do 2 episodes. You know, in the Canadian system, they don't really do pilots. They'll just develop scripts and that kind of stuff. So, you know, like there's people that have had shows in development for years, and, you know, it could be that a production company picks it up, develops it for 6 months, a year before even taking it out. And then you take it out and a broadcaster is like, great, this is awesome. And, you know, it slowly goes into development with them. You know, I can tell you it's a slow process. It's not, again, that's the difference. You can write a feature film in, you know, today and be shooting in April. You know, television's not going to be like that. Yes, there are the stories where they love a pitch, it gets fast tracked and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, again, it's probably more of a broadcaster question of average time of, you know, from pitch to production. But I'll tell you, it's slow and sometimes it can be painful.
Oh boy, buckle those seats in, Carl. Moving on, we do have a question from Alex again. Are there roles in the production process for people who are interested in helping raise capital or financing for productions? If so, how might one get started in that space?
Very good question. Again, for television development, there's usually not a lot of private equity that gets involved, especially in Canada. It's more about broadcast licenses, pre-selling territories, tax credits, CMF funding, all these different types of funding structures. I personally don't know if any of these companies or broadcasters use private equity. Private equity does come in, you know, in the States, but it's usually through funds that like studios have. You know, obviously they have deep pockets because they have investors and stuff like that, the big public companies. So again, Hollywood is a little bit different. You know, if you're plugged into the finance world and want to get into, you know, film financing and all that kind of stuff, you know, you're probably going to be getting into feature films more than television. And then, you know, it really comes down to the, you know, how do you tell financiers how, you know, film financing works, and you know, the risk. It really comes down to the risk, and you know, it's a very high risk type of financing. You know, like I said, feature films, you can go raise your money and make your movie and then go sell it. Well, what happens if nobody buys it? You know, then your investors are like, you told me that we were going to premiere at Sundance. You told me we were going to make 3 times, 5 times, 10 times our money back. So really it comes down to knowing, you know, if you want to be someone who's raising financing, you really need to know how sales work, how financing work, how the rate of return is actually going to be. You know, when you hear, oh, X movie did, you know, $10 million on the weekend. Well, the financier of that movie isn't getting $10 million. There's a trickle down effect, a waterfall effect. And what actually comes back to the producers and the financiers of that money is very little. So, you know, that's kind of like an advanced area to be in. But again, in the Canadian system, especially even with feature films, a lot of times, you know, we're not using private equity. We're doing pre-sales, we're doing loans out of the bank off of, you know, paper documents and stuff like that. International co-pros is a really great way to finance, which is pretty common. So yeah, but you know, if you're someone who has access to private equity and wants to get into film, you know, call me. We'll talk about it.
Awesome. Well, there you go, Alex. I hope that answers that question. We do have a question now from Jim, I believe 𝗔𝘀𝗸𝗠𝗲. I believe that's how it's pronounced. Aside from getting the recognition of your idea, what are the financial rewards? Getting hired for more pitch ideas, royalties, or is this just a passion project?
Well, if you're talking about a TV series idea, if it's something that you've developed, you know, there's many different ways it could go. It could be that you are the creator and you're brought on as a writer, and you know, you go through the whole process. It could be something where they say, we love your idea, we want to bring in so and so showrunner and so producer, and you know, we want to buy the idea off of you or buy your material off of you, or something like that. And again, you know, when it comes to the actual enumeration of how much money you're going to make, it could be, we want to option your thing for $1, or we want to buy it off of you if it goes, but there's no, you know, maybe no money up front kind of thing. And again, that's why, you know, TV series development, it's a long game. It's, you know, you're going to have to invest a lot of time. So it's not something that I say, look, if you want to make it in the industry and you want to be making lots of money, TV is where it's got to be. Like, yes, it is. You can make good money in TV, especially if you get a series picked up, especially if it goes many, you know, seasons, and it gets picked up internationally and all that kind of stuff. But it's a long shot. And you know, yes, if you make it, it's going to be financially worth it, but who knows, right? That's the hard part. So like I say to a lot of people, while you're doing it, you know, while you're developing a TV series, while you're doing all of this stuff, you know, get a job in the industry, learn more about, you know, the filmmaking process, network with people, get to know people, whether you can work at a production company or if you're working on set, at least you're working within the industry and you can meet people and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Aaron. And I hope, Jim, I hope that helps answer your questions there. I think we have Regina hopping back in just because we're getting close to the end of our session. And I believe there are a lot of people out here and like, you know, wondering about the Bell development. And there's some certain questions for that I know Regina can answer. So go ahead, Regina.
Sounds good. Well, thank you so much, Aaron. Thank you so much, Josh. Oh, there's someone just coming a question.
Last one from Rob.
Yeah.
Is a web series a good way to start or a feature that would be made into TV series?
Really good question. You know, you can have a feature that is kind of like a pitch or introduction to a TV series. The transition from feature to TV series doesn't happen very often. Obviously, Star Wars can spin off series and Marvel and all these kind of things. That's not our world. Web series is an amazing place to start. And Bell, you know, that we're talking about has a short form program to help finance, you know, web series. They have 2 deadlines, April 4th and September something. You can go online, Bell Media Fund. I think they call it the Short Media Short Form Fund or something like that. Anyways, again, you can find it very easily. And these are really good for up and coming creatives, because it's not something they're going to say, okay, we need to bring in a big showrunner and we need to bring in a big production company. They're going to let you go and they're going to let you do it. And, you know, they're still going to want you to have, you know, an established producer helping you out, which is something that, you know, Brightlight looks to do in a lot of other companies. But they're going to probably let you showrun. They're going to probably let you write. You know, they're going to talk to you about, you know, have you directed a few shorts before? Sure. Then you can direct some episodes. So, you know, as a stepping stone to getting into the TV world, web series is definitely the way to go.
Awesome. Perfect. And I believe that was our last question from Rob. So now we can zip it out back to Regina.
Sounds good. But everyone, if you still have any question, Erin is still here. We got like time to take a little bit more questions, but we just want to like maybe cover some of the question that some of the folks asked about this specific development series funding projects. So this one is okay. We're sponsored by Bell Media. And then the two recipients will selected from the process, and then each of them will receive 7,500 for the development in the theory series. And if you miss some of the, we have an info session a couple of weeks ago. The video is still on Facebook, so you can go back and check it out. And then Caroline from Bell Media also talk about that quite a bit of what are the expectations from Bell Media. So in the basic requirement from our end, so definitely you have your resume, and then there's a 2-page documents that we're looking for, is including your synopsis, your characters breakdowns, and some sort of season overview. That will be great in that 2 pages. So if Erin also mentioned that, like, how to craft that 2 pages, how do you write that? So he mentioned that during the past half an hour. And then the other last items is if you have either one of those examples, it will be part of the applications, around your script, your sample script, like either could be your film, can be your pilot, could be your screenplay. And then second, either one could be your examples of your previous work. And also if you have pilots, if that's available, that can be part of your applications and support materials. So those are the 3 basic materials that you need to including with your applications. And then besides that, obviously we talk about this is supporting Asian Canadians, so which is one of your key creative members, could be your producer, your writer, your production company, your director, as a self-identify as Asian or part Asian heritage. That is a minimum requirement, and obviously Canadian resident as well. And all of those information also be online at VAFF.org, or you can email us development@VAFF.org. So we just saw that there's a question coming in, and then we'll just go through with the questions again. Let's see.
We have one more from Connor for Erin. Have you received or are you open to pitches from artists coming from other mediums, theater, literature, video games, etc.? Any tips for artists looking to transition to TV?
Yes, and yes. I would love to see stuff from theater. If you've written a book, I'm a huge gamer, and if you have a video game that you're like, hey, I want to turn this into a TV series, again, aside from having something that's authentic to you, having an IP, original something that it can be based off of, and say, hey, I did a graphic novel and, it won awards here and X amount of people have purchased it. I want to turn it into a TV series. That's very interesting. Plays, obviously, Kim's Convenience came from a play. Many shows come from plays. Very open to it. When it regards to artists looking to transition, you're not going to be the experienced writer in television. You're not going to be the experienced, kind of anything, but don't let that hold you back if you've got something cool. And that's where, working with a production company, or again, like maybe if you don't have access to a production company, or a production company can't pick up your project, go find writers, go find other people out there. And there's a huge community, obviously, in Vancouver and across Canada of people looking to do stuff. And find a writing partner who, maybe has a little bit more experience than you on how to put a deck together or how to write a pilot. So don't always think, you got to do it all yourself, because again, it's a collaborative process. You have to work with other people, and it's going to make your project better, and it's going to help you get further. So, yeah.
Awesome. Cool. Thank you, Connor. Thank you, Erin. And we have one more question from Rob. Is Brightlight looking for a type of project in particular?
Brightlight, we like to think ourselves as genre and you know, type agnostic. We, you know, in our industry, it's so hard to get things made unless it's amazing, you know. So we're not going to say, well, we're, you know, we were traditionally a feature film company. We didn't do a lot of TV, and that was our wheelhouse, and that's what we made. But again, we made horror films, we made comedies, drama, everything, you know. And if it's good, we'll, you know, we'll find a way to make it. And that's the question that we get asked from our higher ups. Is like, you know, I find a project and I'm like, this is the one I want to make. And they say, okay, how are you going to make it? Who's going to buy it? Who's going to sell it? Who's going to watch it? How can we, you know, again, put the business hat on? How can we put this together? And if that can't be answered, then the project's not going to be able to be made. So we look at everything, you know, and that's one of the, we can't be picky. You know, it's really, you know, obviously with the world leaning towards television right now, we're very interested in television. I can say we are looking for comedies, you know, things obviously with diverse voices, especially for me, it's very important. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Aaron, and I hope that answers your question, Rob. And I believe that is it. That's coming in through the chat box. I guess, Regina, I'll let you take it away.
Sounds good. All right. Well, thank you so much again, Aaron, and thank you, Josh, and to be here with us. And so I hope everyone, like, you're getting psyched, getting ready to prepare your pitch deck, your slide deck, your all the materials that you need to do to submit to this project. And so just one thing to remember, the deadline is February 28th, 2022. 11:59 p.m. PST. So before we go, just like to have announce a couple more things. And our next mentorship Ask Me Anything session will be in mid-February again. And stay tuned. Other from one of our industry sponsored Warner Media Access Canada, one of the program, Access Talent Spotlight program, the opportunity for undiscovered and underrepresented aspiring actors to receive coaching and exposing. The deadline extended to in a few more days, January 31st. So go check it out on their website. And then if any questions you guys have, feel free to send us an email, development@vaff.org, go online, vaff.org. And then that's it. Thank you, everyone, and see you all next time.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye,
Thank you.
guys.
Bye.